Hey guys, today we are going to be discussing one of the most controversial topics in the Miraculous Ladybug fandom, Adrien being a Sentimonster. To this day, I still see debates about this topic, so I wanted to go season by season and tweet by tweet from Thomas to show all of the foreshadowing moments and evidence that Adrien, along with a few other characters, are indeed Sentimonsters. Before we get into today's video, be sure to subscribe so you never miss the tea on the show you love, and check out my Discord server linked in the description. Now, let's get analyzing. Though this first season presents the least amount of evidence towards this one's theory, there are some points you may have missed. In the episodes Mr. Pigeon and Dark Cupid, this statue in front of the Agrest mansion makes appearances, and if you look closely, you'll notice it's supposed to resemble Adrien holding two rings, most likely the rings that hold his amok. One quote in particular that stands out to me in season 1 is during the first part of the Origins episode, when Gabriel snaps at Adrien and says, "Because you are not like everyone else, you are my son." I sense a strong emphasis on the "because you are not like everyone else" part. It's revealed that Adrien was homeschooled and hardly ever around anyone his age besides Chloe and Felix, which likely had to do with Emily and Gabriel being overly protective of his well-being because of his differences. In this first season, there are also multiple references to Adrien's similarities with his mother, such as how she was overly dramatic, had a temper, and overall was emotional. All of the qualities perfect for the holder of the Peacock Miraculous, which we end up seeing behind the portrait in the episode Valpina. The subtle hints throughout season 2 is what started to sell me personally on the Adrien Sentimonster theory. Just like in season 1, the angel statue holding the two rings would continue to make appearances, and this would be a theme throughout the rest of the seasons. In this same episode, The Collector, Gabriel reveals to Adrien that this book, which happens to be the grimoire, was the last gift that Emily had given to him, teasing at her involvement with the Miraculous at some point. Season 2 brought us the first of many iconic Adrien ads, and what you'll notice almost all of them have in common is the pure amucks included in them that surround Adrien. In the same episode, Gorzilla, we're also introduced to the movie Solitude, starring no other than Adrien's mother, Emily. One of my favorite foreshadowing moments this season, though, would have to be during the episode Robustus. All throughout the episode, there's a very strong emphasis on how, despite Markov being artificial intelligence and a robot, he can be seen as more than that, with emotions and feelings like any other human being, and I believe this leans into the Sentimonster topic early on, and how they too can be considered a living thing / person if intended to be like that. The season 2 finale is where things really begin to escalate though, since we get to see the Peacock Miraculous be used for the very first time by Natalie, and not only had the Peacock Miraculous been stored behind Emily's portrait all along, but it even laid up against a photo of Emily, and next to it, a photo highlighting Tibet on the map, which we later learn is where Gabriel, Natalie, and Emily found the Miraculous. As a last resort, Natalie transforms into Mayura to save Hawkmoth, and just by his reaction and saying,
"No, don't do that,"
you can tell he was shocked that someone was using it again, considering it was damaged. So who would have used the Miraculous prior to Natalie, and how did it become damaged? Assuming Emily had used the Miraculous, the big question is why. Next up is a quick moment in the Shanghai special, but one to not overlook, and it's when Gabriel says, "What I started 15 years ago, I will finish tomorrow at last." The ages of the Miraculous characters are kind of hard to confirm, but Adrien is roughly 14 or 15 years old, which means that if this, Gabriel and Emily getting involved with the Miraculous, started over 15 years ago, then there is yet another good chance that Emily used the Peacock Miraculous with the intentions of giving life to Adrien. To this day, season 3 is still my favorite season, and I loved how much it expanded on the Sentimonster topic and the knowledge it gave us on them. In the episode Oni-chan, Lila points out how similar Adrien looks to his mother, and in season 4, we get to see a photo of who appears to likely be young Tomoe, who is identical to Kagami, who is confirmed to be a Sentimonster in season 5. I will be going more in depth about Kagami being a Senti in a whole other video, but assuming Tomoe also used the Peacock Miraculous and lost her vision to it, it goes to show why the children of the creators look so similar and hardly anything like their other parent except for Felix's case. Party Crasher was the beginning of many more moments to come of Gabriel fidgeting with one of the twin rings, and he does this as he goes to tell Emily that he'll finally be able to reverse their past mistakes, and in the episode Feast, Adrien mentions that his mother used to get dizzy spells, which is an after effect of using the Peacock Peacock Miraculous while damaged, which again implies that Emily had used the Miraculous at some point in time and faced the ultimate consequences. A common argument I see when it comes to the Adrien Sentimonster theory is that Sentimonsters can't be akumatized, but this was shown in the episode Feast to be possible, and since Adrien is one, the episode Cat Blanc would add to that too. When Hawkmoth learned Adrien was Cat Noir, he took full advantage of not only emotionally manipulating him, but by using his amucked object against him too. Whether Cat Noir was willing to join forces with his father in this moment to bring his mother back, Gabriel knew he'd already won because all it took to convince Adrien was to say one word: obey. Towards the end of the episode, Adrien's fifth name is revealed to be Athanasis, which means immortal, which is technically what Sentimonsters are, considering their lifespan depends on the safety of the object holding their amok. Now, something that has always confused me a bit is the episode Miracular, where we see Cat Noir get cataclysmed, and when a Sentimonster is cataclysmed, it breaks the link with their holder. Thomas has commented on this in the past by saying that their suits help to protect them and almost make them invulnerable, but we do see Cat Noir out of it the whole rest of the episode, and I've even seen fans bring up the point in Cat Blanc that after he released his Mega Cataclysm, he was never the same mentally, even if his suit protected him. Another amazing episode this season was Felix, and from here on out, there's an even stronger focus on the mystery revolving around the twin rings, with Felix and his mother's interest in getting them back being revealed, and by the end of the episode, teasing the story of the Graham de Vanilli rings, which we get to learn about in season 5. Going back to the point I made earlier about Sentis resembling their creators, Felix and Adrien are identical to each other when it comes to their physical appearance, which begs the question how that is possible if Amelie's husband doesn't look exactly like Gabriel. Throughout the episode, it's revealed Felix's father passed away around the same time Emily did, and at one point Felix even goes to say to Adrien, "You always do everything your father asks of you to do." Earlier on, many fans were convinced of Felix being a Sentimonster way before Adrien because of his stoic and somewhat robotic personality. However, this is further explained in season 5, which we'll get to. By the end of the episode, Felix manages to steal one of the 2 rings from Gabriel, and just as he's leaving, Adrien chases after him, which is when Gabriel tells Adrien to stay here, but he doesn't. Adrien didn't listen because Gabriel no longer had possession of the object holding his amok, the ring. The episode Ladybug has got to be another one of my favorite Miraculous episodes, partially because of how much it elaborates on Sentimonsters and how real they can be if given free will. Earlier on in the episode, Natalie is shown to be feeling the effects of using the broken Peacock Miraculous when Gabriel mentions that using it ends up breaking its wearers. Natalie says, "I want to help you, Gabriel," which he replies to by saying, "Not at that cost. Never at that cost again," when the screen pans over to the Agrest family photo with Emily in it, heavily confirming once again that Emily did use the Peacock Miraculous, and as a result ended up in the state she is in. The end screen of this episode then goes to show an amok right next to Adrien, and while you may think it's just a coincidence and I'm looking too far into things, I can assure you it's not. Because why is it that for a split second an amok appears next to Cat Noir in this season 5 intro? Nothing is just a coincidence in Miraculous. Now, season 4 was interesting because for the first time we would get to see the Peacock Miraculous be used by Gabriel now that it was repaired. The Gabriel Agrest episode is one that doesn't imply Adrien so much being a Sentimonster, but it sure does for Felix. At this point, Felix is still in possession of one of the 2 rings and Gabriel wants it back. Gabriel says to Felix, "I only need to snap my fingers to make you disappear from here. Think of your mother." For once, Felix actually seemed threatened, like his life was on the line, because it literally was. The "think of your mother" line made even more sense after watching the episode Representation, when it's revealed that both Emily and Amelie were unable to have children and the lengths they went to for having one. Our first big foreshadowing moment in season 4 that Adrien was a Sentimonster took place in the episode Mega Leech, when Adrien tries to explain to his father that he didn't stand against him that day, but against a project he realized was bad for Paris. This is when Gabriel lifts his hand with the ring and tells Adrien to go to his room. Without hesitation, Adrien does as he says, and when Gabriel turns around, he can be seen twisting the ring. This is one of my favorite shots from season 4 because it so clearly depicts the relationship Gabriel has formed with Adrien because of how he chooses to take advantage of the fact that his son is different. Wishmaker was yet another huge episode for this theory at the time because all throughout it, Adrien can't decide on what career he wants to do. He's so used to his father deciding everything for him, and at the same time Adrien confesses this, one of his ads, including a mux, just happens to appear behind Luca and Marinette, the people he is talking to in that moment, and I believe this was a subtle hint. Things get even crazier though when Adrien is hit by Wishmaker and shares that his childhood dream was to always be what his parents wanted him to be. His dream wasn't like the others to be a firefighter, a fairy, or heck, even a cucumber, but to be what his parents wanted? Do I even have to explain? So remember how I said that we'd see more Adrien ads including feathers and the foreshadowing with that? Well, Gabriel thought it would be a great idea to dress Adrien like this for his next one, and he is literally the statue in front of their house at this point. He just needs the rings. Ephemeral is another example of the writers showing, instead of saying that Adrien is a Sentimonster, because we so clearly see Gabriel playing with his ring and ordering Adrien to represent him at the press conference. Again, when Adrien is seen resisting the Akuma, Shadowmoth twists his ring and Adrien just like that obeys. This is why I mentioned for the episode Cap Blanc that Hawkmoth knew he would win no matter the outcome, because it's revealed that even when he transforms, he still has the ring on him. Lastly, for season 4 foreshadowing moments, we have the finale, and boy is there a lot to point out, so buckle up. Starting with the first part, Risk, Adrien says, "Has there ever been something that you wanted to tell someone but you just couldn't do it? As if some kind of invisible force was holding you back?" Yes, well, I think we all know what that invisible force is. Later, when Felix comes to save Adrien, he assures him that while he can't disobey his father, he can. Because at this point, Felix is in possession of one of the rings and Natalie possesses the other. Both rings hold Adrien's amok, and if you don't understand why, do not worry, I will explain that soon. The scene where Gabriel is handing the ring to Natalie, he goes to tell her, "I'm trusting you with my wife's ring and my son." And if we consider everything we know up until now, he really means that the safety of this ring dictates the safety of Adrien. So now that Gabriel was ringless, he would no longer be able to give orders to Adrien, which is why when we see him attempt to and he doesn't have the ring, Adrien here, who is actually Felix, doesn't follow his order. Also, considering that Felix is a Sentimonster, it made sense why he was so keen on getting the Peacock Miraculous in this finale, because while it seemed he already had the object that held his amok, all that was left for him was to get possession of the Peacock Miraculous so that he could never be threatened to be snapped out of existence ever again, and have full control over himself and other Sentimonsters around him. This also explains why we see the reaction from Flammidable/Felix that we do when he realizes Ladybug's plan to send the Sentimonsters into space. He doesn't want to harm his own kind, and this is touched on in season 5 in the episode Emotion. We have entered the last season, which is probably the most important one of all when it comes to confirming that Adrien is a Sentimonster, and that is no other than season 5. Going into the season, we could expect for Felix to be the new Peacock Miraculous holder, and in the episode Multiplication, he tells Dusu that "I am much more than that," meaning that he won't be like any other holder we've seen. Perfection was an episode that I didn't really care for until the end of it, because when Tomoe stormed in on Gabriel over akumatizing her daughter, I knew in that moment that Kagami too was a Sentimonster. I plan on talking about this in another video, but this just goes to show that the parent alliance involving the Agress, Tsurugi, and Graham de Vanillies were all in on the Peacock Miraculous and created their children with it. To further add to the fact that Kagami is also a Sentimonster, just a few episodes later in Protection, when Gabriel is trying to convince Adrien to be back with Kagami, he literally says him and Kagami are of the same design, then proceeds to twist his ring when forbidding Adrien from seeing Marinette. Natalie, however, who still has one of the twin rings, gives Adrien a counter order and tells him that he's free to decide his love life, which then makes makes him change his mind. I think the episode that convinced a lot of people, though, of the truth surrounding Adrien was the following episode when Adrien and Marinette are just about to kiss, and all of a sudden, Gabriel appears and in Adrien's mind tells him no. Adrien couldn't resist the order, just like a Sentimonster, and as he's seen leaving Marinette suddenly, Gabriel can be seen tapping his ring. For the first time since the beginning of the season, we finally get to see Felix return, and what a comeback he makes. In emotion, Felix posing as Adrien senses Kagami's amok in her ring during this moment, and something that I see a lot of people confusing is how the holder of the Peacock Miraculous senses Sentimonsters. The Peacock Miraculous holder senses amuks, not Sentimonsters. So since it appears that Kagami is allowed to wear the ring that holds her amok, this is why we see Felix react the way that he does in this scene, because he realizes that she is just like him, and explains why he only spares Kagami and Adrien in this new and free world he created. In conclusion, we see yet another close-up of Gabriel fidgeting with the ring, and representation is the episode that confirms it all. Though I still see people confused about how the Agreste and Graham de Vanilli family lore was explained in this episode, and I can't blame you because the writers really decided to present it in the most unexpected way possible. I won't go too in-depth about it in this video, however I will link the analysis I did on this episode in the description if you'd like a clearer explanation. Basically though, Felix and Kagami put together this presentation for Marinette to explain everything from how Adrien and Felix were created, the backstories behind both of their parents, how the Peacock Miraculous was used, who the holders of the Miraculous were, and more. It's confirmed that Emily was the first to use the Miraculous to have Adrien, and because of Colt's jealousy, who was Felix's father, he too used the Miraculous so that Amelie could have Felix, and that explains why Colt passed away during the same time that Emily did. It was also explained how two objects were able to hold one amok, and the answer is that the twin rings were once one that Emily divided when her and Gabriel were together, as an amok can only be held within one object, not across multiple, so technically the twin rings count as one. The last foreshadowing moment revealed throughout the seasons is in the season 5 finale, when Adrien finally has possession of the rings and expresses how free he feels when he tells Marinette, "I feel so free." Now Adrien is in control of himself and his very own holder of the object storing his amok. I've expressed my concern about this in one of my recent videos and the possibility of Lila getting a hold of the two rings, but for now Adrien has them and I hope it stays that way. So while that is everything from the seasons, I did want to go over a few tweets that Thomas shared over the years that I think can also be helpful when it comes to understanding the rules of the Peacock Miraculous and Sentimonsters. At the time of this tweet, a popular argument was that Aeon should have been able to tell that Adrien was a Sentimonster. However, Thomas replied to this by saying that no one can tell the difference, not even Aeon. One user asked if Sentimonsters could grow up just like any other human being, which Thomas replied to by saying if he's conceived like this, yeah. One of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to Sentimonsters is that they have to be very stoic and robotic-like, which is why many fans were so quick to jump on board with Felix and Kagami being potential Sentimonsters. But the difference between them and Adrien is that both of their parents are incredibly controlling. Yes, Gabriel is a very controlling father, however, Emily was Adrien's creator, whereas for Felix and Kagami, their creators were Colt and Tomoe, two very serious people with very strict rules and expectations for their children. So that was every foreshadowing moment I was able to pick up on throughout the seasons that Adrien was a Sentimonster. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that it may have helped some better understand Sentimonsters/Senti beings. And as always, be sure to let me know your thoughts and theories down below and subscribe so you never miss the tea on the show you love. And an extra special thanks to my Celestial Guardian channel members, Libby, FA, Amandine, and Simply Noah. And I'll see you all in the next one.